That's NRD, almost 150 acres. That's for sale right now. So I'm hoping it's spot nobody's coming about that 150 acres.
Well, they're wanting to do 1 house per 5 acres.
That'd be real good. Over the whole place? Or just your
that's
part?
27 acres on that side. Now the one is 5.8, and then the other one's 171 on the back.
But is the big ones on the other side on the back, like you're saying, is all the same owners or
It's all
everything's the same?
Everything's the same.
I didn't know if that 27 acres was different from the backside or not.
No.
And Lee Allison is one of them, right? And she is a card carrying.
Nothing to say.
Wonder who she's. Wonder who she's affiliated to, right?
Yeah.
Hey, Miss Waller, I shook your hand. I hit you, didn't shake your hand.
No, I think I hit you
I
first.
believe you did.
Where's this letter at?
Jim got it.
Did he send it to them?
Yeah, he said everybody, Wayne, the attorney, Bob Bowman.
Send it.
I'll get you. I need to get him to send you a good copy of it. Basically, we're gonna hold on till you can't do nothing about it.
Oh, really?
He's supposed to be bringing me some fish.
Some of them,
Put my phone.
really, yeah, they are more. They really don't like it. That means it's good. Anything else you don't like, it's good. You got Chase's thing, Chase's thing, I don't know the people involved. That's the 74 off subdivision, 72 off, whatever it is.
No, it's on my.
This is a workshop then.
Appreciate y'all being here early. Sorry for the early time frame. We'll pick up on Article 5 where we left off. So, what we'll do is cover some of the things. We mailed out a copy of the revised vision that we had at the last meeting. We've got some replies and comments in regards to that. We've implemented some of those changes based off of those recommendations. So I want to go through and just try to earmark and tab those, just as an overview. Of course, we created some new zoning districts, the A3, the R2, the T1, and the CFD district. This does have some increase in lot sizes in our districts, and then we've also, in effect in this, placed some of the things that were in our allowable uses and special exceptions into appropriate zoning. So that's just an overview of Article 4. Based on the information I received back from the feedback of the board from the last time, we made some corrections. I'll start by saying in the A1 and the A2, we had some setback changes we had looked at that would increase the required setbacks in those zonings. We have went back and made those setbacks the same as they were before. So in the A1, it's as it was, 50 feet front, 20 on the side, plus 5 feet for each additional story, 35 in the rear. That's what it's always been. The A2 is 40 in the front, 20 on the side, plus 5 feet for each additional story, and 30 in the rear. That's what it's always been. So we've actually amended that back to what it was originally. There was some concern, as I scroll down, first I'll look at this, there was some of our verbiage was still old that we hadn't changed, it may have had cotton ginning in there. I'm not sure if anybody's gonna get back into that, but it basically now just says, processing, cultivating, and harvesting of crops, corn shelling, hay baling, those similar. That's just a brief description of uses. Anything similar are allowable in the ag zones, okay? There was concerns for location of accessory buildings. We had made a recommendation in order to try to address a lot of the things that come before board, that to say if you had a minimum of 1 acre lot, an accessory building could be located in the front yard in compliance with a principal structure setback. Had a few that said that that's really a pretty small lot to allow that to occur. So what we did is went back and in the A1, A2, the new A3, and the R1, we recommended that to go to 2.5 acres. I'll take any feedback on the sizes for that. Currently, as it is written in the A1 and A2, if you have 3 acres, you can do it basically the same way. We're just looking at making that uniform. We do have R zoning districts out there that are large tracts, 5, 10, 15 acre R1s. Those people were still having to come before us. We're just trying to resolve some of the things that's coming before the Board of Zoning Appeals for variance. One of the things that was recommended, in our A1, we have this arts and crafts events and things. One of the things that was recommended was to notify officials as sheriff's office, fire department. So we've added this section basically stating written approval from the Loudon County Highway Department, sheriff's office, and fire department. That might be something that we can, it's not very often we have this, but it could be something as simple as creating the form with all these people to take it to them, notify them of them, show them what it is they have in mind, and having them sign that document. That's the way I would handle that. Processing, let's see, arts and crafts. Daycares was another one that was addressed that come up. Questionable as far as, it was mentioned, maybe it needed to have something in there about state standards. So you can read the standards. I pulled up state guidelines on daycares. There's a number of children to be considered a daycare, first of all. So without getting into state regs and trying to implement that, these come through as a special exception already. It was always an allowable use as a special exception in these districts. We just add the notice that it must comply with state of Tennessee licensing guidelines. So if they're under that threshold that they're not considered daycare, is one thing. If they exceed that threshold, then they would have to be licensed through the state also. That'd be something they would have to have in order for this board, or this, the BZA would have to grant it, or most likely for them to even get started to get the state licensure and what they're going to be mandated by the state to do to operate that. But that verbiage was added. In the R2, we did some clarification on this is where we're putting multifamily development is in the R2. You see a lot of highlighted areas. That's where all the sections of zoning had to be amended, addressing these things I've stated. Right here in the R2 is where we're putting multifamily. So in the R2, we're allowing single family and duplexes as allowable uses. Your prefabricated room and boarding, but the one thing that we had to address was townhouse condo developments. So we pulled them down there in that special exception item with multifamily. That's where they would come in with the appropriate details. We want to do a condo development or townhouse development. That is already in the R2, but we need to have it put in the segment, how they're going to design and be approved for that. Also, the one thing that was left out from changes in the past we've addressed is when we had noted in your all's documents the minimum lot size. If you recall, we had changed duplexes at that time that had to basically be, some people looked at it as 2 units per acre, but it was a minimum lot size. So we've addressed that here. So in the R2, if you're doing a single family, you're creating basically a half-acre lot. If you're doing a duplex, you're creating a 1 acre lot for those duplexes. All these things, as we have amended in the past, duplexes and things of that nature require water and sewer connection, no septic. 01, there was some concerns brought about 01. There was some bad had language on setbacks, you know, it said 2 stories, so what we've stated is 2 stories or more to meet the setbacks. The setbacks did not change. There was also, some concerns about the minimum lot size. Currently, the minimum lot size is 1 acre. So there was concerns, and it's probably valid, when you put in a building, you need enough room for a building, you need enough room for parking and possible detention structure to go in place. There was concerns that that's not quite large enough, so we took that to a 2 acre minimum lot size in an O1. I don't think that's a overwhelming size to try to create some type of commercial type development. That is the updated amendments to the reg you already had, where that was the comments and replies I've received and how we went about trying to answer those. I was asked about some pros and cons, so I'm gonna give you just a real quick spiel and then I'll be done. So, Ms. Birchfield looked up the number of plats that was submitted from January of 23 to January of 24 that were A1 and A2 plats. The number of plats that would come in to be submitted for subdivision, it could be 1 lot, it could have been 2. There were 59 plats submitted in that time frame. So what that would mean is if those 59 plats were to come through our board today and they weren't compliant, let's say it's in an A2, if they're not doing a 2.5 acre A2, then they would need to go through the process of rezoning in order to do an A3 zoning and be able to get back to that 1 acre lot size. So that would be the number. You know, I can't say from year to year what it might be, but it will be, the biggest con is that it is one more step for some properties possibly to get through to that smaller density in those 2 zoning districts for rezoning. I don't really look at going from A to R, that was already a rezoning requirement. Any of those things that was already necessary to do. As I understand, there's been concerns and questions, where are we going to place A3 properties? So, as I understand, it's not that big a premise as to where we're gonna put them. So, someone has a piece of property, we'll say in the A1 or A2, either one, and they've got 4 or 5 acres, and they need to, their intent is to subdivide off an acre, or 2 plots, we'll say, 2 1 acre plots for their children or whatever that might be. As I understand, that would not, that would be acceptable for this body to approve and send through the commission. And as I understand, they would be happy to move forward in that rezoning. What this does is this gives us, it's not gonna prohibit those type of things from occurring, but what it'll do, it will allow us to, as these things come through our office in these rural areas or these zones, it allows us to be able to look at and to review the proposed use. We can determine whether these subdivisions, whether it's larger or greater, is a suitable in that area of the community. It allows us to see if there's infrastructure in place to allow that type of development to occur. And it helps us, it gives us a better way to manage responsible development. You know, most people continue to say, I'm not opposed to development, but I want responsible development. I think these changes in these regs will give us something, and the only way I know to oversee responsible development throughout the communities in our county. The one thing that's eccentric, I think, over the past few years, based on the great place the state of Tennessee is, and the great place Loudon County is to live, is in the environment of the nation, it seems like we are having to now face things and deal with things that we've never dealt with in the past. And this is our opportunity to look in and to take in some proactive steps and measures to see how our community moves from here forward. If y'all got any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Jim, did I understand that right, that in the R2, a duplex would be a 1 acre lot?
Yes,
Is that
sir.
right?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
So it's a 1/2 acre per per unit, basically.
It basically comes down to 2 units per acre if you wanted to break it up that way, but yes, sir, it'd be a 1 acre lot.
That's what it currently is.
Pass that on top.
Currently, our minimum lot size in the R1, we don't have an R2, is 20,000 square feet.
Right.
They want to just take that to 1/2 acre, and subsequently, it'd be a full acre for the duplex.
But your change is just explaining it.
Yeah,
You're just adding
actually,
language
it
to
was
it.
left out,
Yeah.
that segment that's highlighted was
Yeah.
left out, so when you see duplexes as allowable use, a person would have been able to come in our office and obtain a duplex on a 1/2 acre lot, which we already had said they didn't want to pass.
So any, property owner that wants to deed off some property to a child or somebody else, all the A3 rezonings have to come before this board, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
No matter how many lots they're subdividing off?
Yeah, even if it's just a lot, you know, if they don't wanna meet the minimum standard, they would rezone. And unfortunately, all rezonings do come through the planning commission first and county commission final.
And when you say minimum standard, A1, 5 acres, A2, 2.5 acres?
Yes, ma'am.
And you said that number was 59?
Yes, sir.
What, is that over a 1 year period, or what is that?
That was over a 1 year period, and let me, reference that by saying, I didn't go back and pull all those plats, I can't say that every plat, it was, be a fair guess to say that the majority of those would somehow be affected by this. We are going to, anytime you change a reg, you're gonna affect someone and somebody.
Sure.
It's just,
And that number 59 was for people coming in wanting to subdivide
it was
a
just.
piece of their property off.
Yes, it was just subdivision plats, yes.
I still have an issue with the A3 and people, you know, what if somebody comes in and wants to wants to rezone a 100-acre farm to A3?
So, and they can, right?
They
You
can.
request it, as our rezoning states now, it says, we have our current use, when we rezone property, it states our current use, and it states our proposed use. At that time, you know, somebody comes and wants to rezone 100 acres, and that's where they would give reason and cause why I'm rezoning a 100-acre farm, you know, and most people aren't gonna do that to say, well, I just wanna keep farming it. There's most likely another use. they
There's an
want to
underlying
create.
reason.
And an underlying reason may be for a 89 lot subdivision or a 75 lot subdivision. At that time, you know, if that's the intended use, that doesn't mean it stops them. What it does mean is now we get to look at what they are, where it's at, what facilities we have, what infrastructure is available, how that might impact the surrounding community. Ultimately, you all make a recommendation one or the other. The final say would be through county commission.
But I mean, we already do that with A1 or A2.
We do, we just right now, in the A1.
Other than the minimum lot size
Lot sizes
changed.
are a lot smaller.
But other than that,
So
we still review
you would not
that.
have you do not, right now, I would say that they don't have the ability to control certain type of development of that nature, because if this plat comes in compliant, then it's approved. You've got the road surface, and you've got whatever utilities you may be required out there, it's approved automatically. But, so you could take that same 100 acres and do whatever lots it is, but there is no rezoning laws in effect. And it wouldn't matter what the community thought or what the surrounding effects are. If it's compliant, then you are the only ones that hear it as approval.
Right. Have you received any feedback or questions or concerns from A1 or A2 property owners regarding this?
I have. I've had phone calls from people calling me and saying, well, so-and-so's calling saying this, so-and-so's calling that. I've only had one person, they're in the audience tonight to discuss, any thoughts in how this works for
Good,
them.
good.
But other than that, I've had some positive feedback also.
Mhm. I saw some misinformation on Facebook.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
Can't stay ahead of social media,
No.
there's no way.
And what I'm relaying to you, as far as this rezoning and what the intent purpose is what I understand is even what county commissioners that have called and tried to find out info on how does this work, and how it's been relayed. And trying to provide to you the information they've provided to me, give it to me.
Van, did you go to the Farm Bureau meeting and speak?
Thursday,
Oh, it's this next Thursday, so you haven't been yet.
Ryan's in charge.
He's along for the ride.
So if you got 100 acres and you wanna make it A3, that's still better than R1.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
It is.
density wise for the
It
county.
is. The point is with the changes, right now you're either A1 and A2 if you're in an A, right? This new reg is gonna cause your property to automatically go to a 5-acre minimum or a 2.5-acre minimum, right? So now to get back to that original A1, you would have to go through the rezoning process.
To an A3, to an A3.
To an
An
A3.
A3 is 1 acre lot.
It is. You can still get there, it just has to go through a process. And again, right now, if you submit a compliant plat in the A1 or A2 at 1-acre lots, it comes to the planning commission for approval. You don't have anything to stand on as to whether it's suitable for that, area or not.
This is the first comprehensive change since 1974. We're way behind the 8 ball, so it's gonna be good.
Well, my problem goes back to communication. I just don't feel like it's been communicated. I'm sorry. I wish you'd have been to the Farm Bureau last Thursday.
I will say this, we did, even though it wasn't voted on, this was at the county commission workshop also.
I understand.
And doing our best to get it out there. I don't know how you get it out to everyone.
Talk to Ryan, I think he's had some conversation with some folks in that circle also.
I've just, I've discussed exactly what we've discussed here, that, what people I've talked to has the fear of, I won't be able to, I only wanna give an acre away to my
Exactly.
grandson.
Mhm.
And, and as we discussed at our last workshop, that, we're allowed to it's not spot zoning to stay within the same, A or R, whatever, we can.
Residential.
Yeah, so we can give an A3, a 1 acre A3, and I think that, that's, I feel good about that we're allowed to do that, under this.
But
I
we're
know-
not the final say.
Right, right, that's true.
We're not the ones say on nothing.
Nothing.
Can I speak since we're in a workshop? I guess I'm the one in the crowd he's speaking about. So if you don't own 100 acres, let's say you own 20, you got 5 kids, I wanna leave them something, or whatever I wanna do. I still have to go back begging for permission if somebody sits up there and says, hey, he's a developer, he's a builder, I don't believe that. What's gonna regulate somebody to be able to say, this is my plan with that? Who dictates that? And if I have, my question is, if I have somebody that dictates what I'm gonna do, and they don't like maybe my profession or something that I do for a living, then I'm stuck at their discretion. And then I'm begging for permission. I shouldn't have to beg for permission to do on my land. I completely understand slowing down growth or doing whatever. And I'm a developer, I ain't shy telling them. But I live here and it's my land and my home is on it. And if I got 5 kids and I don't have enough to give them 5 acres, then I'm stuck like Chuck at somebody else begging somebody. So that's the question I have. How you all gonna regulate, if you ain't the body that finalizes it? If the next body doesn't like somebody or maybe what they do, then we have a problem, and that's not okay. So tell me how we're gonna regulate in this wording of how we're gonna be able to say, well, if he can explain that he's gonna give it to a family member, we're gonna write that down, the writing?
He's right, it needs to be in writing.
The regulations were set forth in this that dictate minimum lot sizes of the zoning districts. The allowable uses in those districts, the lot widths, the size of lots. So it's a change definitely to the rig, for a set intent and purpose of helping to have responsible development. There's nothing that I know of that you're gonna get in writing to say that, you know, again, it comes down to, the intended use of when I'm trying to rezone something, as with any rezoning, what's your intended use for that property? Someone may come in literally and say, I wanna create a 6-lot subdivision. And that's suitably fine to request that zoning and for it to be heard through this body and y'all to approve it and be taken to county commission for their final decision. There's nothing wrong with that, and we will see that. But what it does is it does allow them to, you all and the commission, to look at the area as to where that's occurring, to manage that, to look at it, to make that final decision. One thing I wanted to bring up is, I've had some meetings, and in one of the meetings I mentioned some of the things we were doing about this 5 acres and 2.5 acres, and I was told that meeting, I've not went and looked at their documents to see what they've done, but as I understand, there's at least 2 other counties, one, Jefferson, that as I understand, we're going to 10 acres. And, Williamson County, which is one of the highest growth counties in the state, that is following suit in some increase in acreage to try to save some of their, rural area. We're not the only ones fighting this battle, but we have to make a decision on the best way to handle that. And I'll take any of your suggestions and recommendations and either make those amendments or take that forward if you choose to move it forward to commission. I mean, however you want to, I will take that information.
I provided my comments to you and you've taken them into account, so I'm happy with the way it is.
Yes, sir.
What's the effective date?
It will be once it comes through this body, it goes to a county commission workshop, and once it goes to the county commission's voting meeting is when it will be voted on.
So it's not May 1st?
That is I don't know if yours shows up, it's highlighted because he just put that date in there. That date's only in there to hold that spot. That's not necessarily the date. I mean, it could be, but that could be changed. That's just highlighted because to put the information in that area. The effective date will be whenever county commission votes and approves it.
So it's not as recorded on May 1st, 2024?
That is verbiage that has to go on the document, and that will be changed to represent whatever date county commission, if they approve it. I can't tell you whether they'll approve it or not, but if they approve it, whatever date they approve it, that will be the date that's placed there.
So of record, so what about people that already have surveys in?
Surveys that are in my office right now, we're going to process them as they are.
Okay, what about people right now that have a couple thousand in and they're waiting on Jimmy Hare or someone that's 5 months out getting to your survey? What about those people?
Be happy to discuss that with the commission, that's how we want that handled. Obviously, I think any survey there may be surveys in process. I don't know that survey that somebody's contacted a surveyor that's 5 months out. I don't know that they want to go with that. I don't know if they want to put a time frame on plats and documents that are submitted. That would be something I would have to discuss with the commission if they choose to bring in these laws.
I've got a survey I'm waiting on, I'm 7 weeks, I'm sitting in this same thing right here. I'm A1, minimum of 5, getting 2 acres. Y'all gonna put an A3 in the middle of hundreds of acres of A1. In that situation. I mean, like I said, I'm 7 weeks waiting on a surveyor right now. And that's the closest one I can get, and he's gonna get me as soon as he can. The next one down the road was 8 months out. So, you know, it's a waiting game for them because they're overworked. Sure. But, you know, I was going on the documentation that she's got, which is going to be May 1st, is what was published, is what's out there, you know, effective as of May 1st.
Well, and again, that is something that's put in there, whether that's the date or not, I don't know when the next county commission meeting isn't even on the 1st, I don't believe. It's just,
May 6th.
it's May 6th, but that's put in there as a place, all right? It's not the effective date. That effective date will take place whenever commission states that it takes place. As far as some of these concerns of timeframes of people working on surveys or what's in their office, I would take direction from the commission on how those dates are affected and what we need to do to handle that.
That's Pete.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I hear her concern and communication. At its core, I heard you share numbers about 59 plats and this and that. At its core, what spurred this resolution? And how have we mapped out that it will be effective in handling the situation that created it?
I guess what spurred this is the changes that's been occurring over the past 2 years. If you've been involved in any of the zoning actions over the past few years, you've seen dense developments within the county continue to be objected by, and you've also seen those regs being amended and changed to stop some of that. This is another step in that action, for a lack of better words, in managing what everybody wants to call responsible growth. There's no definition. Nobody wants to define what responsible growth is. So, commission tasked the planning commission to come down and look at these regs, which have needed amendments and updating. I've seen documents that go back to 2005 where they were going to go through and update these documents. So, that's come to our office, and it's time to start doing this. As we're updating this document, that's where these new things have come into place. We want to create additional zoning districts if necessary. One of the things that people haven't heard is, if you weren't here, the community facilities district. Right now, in the A1 or A2, by special exception, you're allowed rock quarries, you're allowed sanitary landfills, things of that nature. This document also provides a specific zoning for that, which puts the hands of the county commission, the people, to go out and look at those areas and why it's necessary and a little better control as to where it must go. It's not just the lot size changes in A1 and A2 or treating the yard or anything. But it's just updating the regs and addressing the times, for lack of better words.
It sounds like the main concern has to do with being able to handle your land, offer it to family. And it sounded like you kind of maybe objected a bit, like this isn't the place for that, or we're not gonna put it in writing. But I think that it would go a long way. And
There's no way for me to put that in writing. I don't have that control to say what gets rezoned or not. My office merely processes that, and it comes through this board first to be heard and recommended, and then from there it goes to county commission, because technically we have a zoning map, which is a part of the law, more or less. And it's a changing of that map, it's a changing of the law, which is handled through the commission, the legislative body of the county. There's no way for me to put in writing that this man wants to give this. I understand you're saying, well, this is just all in good faith, and what's that worth? I get that also. On the same token, it's ultimately up to the body at this point to determine whether we need to take action and whether these are good changes to protect rural areas of Loudon and how that occurs or not.
Loudon County is the 63rd fastest growing county in the United States of America per capita. That's mind blowing.
we're the third fastest in the state of Tennessee. They are pouring in here.
Yeah, but can we control this by other means?
I don't know of any other way.
Can you not control it by some of your subdivision regulations and what you require on some of your subdivision regulations?
Good.
Even if we have like 24-foot wide requirement subdivision, they still dump right out on the real small county roads.
What are we doing about the roads now?
Plus Jacker.
Before they got here, what we doing about them?
So like this gentleman here said, the question is, maybe even beyond that is, so we in good faith put it before the board here, and then it goes forward to the county commission who calls it personalities and all. I mean, they put a good faith saying that they want it to happen, it meets all the requirements, and then county commission doesn't like someone, or just decides just to push it down. It can, and that's exactly, so really, this board won't have any say in that regard, because county commission's got to say.
It's called socialism.
I get, we used to live in Hardin Valley, and if anybody's been there lately, it's a nightmare, and I get that, I
We
would
have
never,
farms there.
yeah, would never, ever want anything like that.
That's what scares us.
Yes, and it scares me too,
They
that's
did the
why
same thing. They did the same thing. Look where they're at now.
but
You gotta take that into consideration.
I think what most of us in here are concerned about is our rights as landowners being, you understand? I mean,
It's a
it's a
slippery
scary
slope, it
thought,
really
yeah,
is.
it is a slippery slope, and it's a scary thought to think, you know, just like this gentleman over here said, you know, he wants to give property and he's basing, you know, he has to go before a committee and maybe, you know, maybe Keith is like, I don't really like him, you know, say you're on that committee, and then, sorry, you can't get your A3 zoning.
Yeah.
I
You can't do
mean,
what
so
you
we're
do
kind of
when
at
you're
the
back.
mercy, and that's a scary process. We don't want all that development. I love looking at the farmland, it's beautiful. I don't
We
want
got
to,
farms.
yeah, I don't
Yeah.
wanna look at
But
something
you
like,
gotta have a place to meet in the middle.
yeah.
You can't just say, we're gonna dictate, and we're gonna take all your rights away as property. Y'all have property too, and I think it does apply to you too, right?
Sure.
Okay.
There's an exemption in there.
There is.
So the same thing they're talking about, I own the farm in Hardin Valley. The county didn't take the appropriate steps. And so the same thing I'm saying now. The county, and the county commission, they gotta do what they're supposed to do to make sure the roads are, you know, and the growth is coming as slow as it needs to come. Telling somebody what they can do with their land. In the way we're trying to say it, you're saying Williamson County. Well, Williamson County is not the only county out there, it touches Davidson. You got all kinds of stuff that grew before it ever touched Williamson County. And I've been there, I've lived there, we own stuff there. This is Jefferson County. Well, let's just talk about Loudon, or whatever it touches us. If we're gonna take care of the roads, they need to be took care of for any subdivision ever gets here. The roads at Hardin Valley, they let all them subdivisions go in, and the county knew they were coming there, and they didn't widen the road. The argument is not Hardin Valley and the subdivisions. If them people wanted to sell their land, they sold it. And I bought one of them. Okay? But they didn't widen the road. That's still the argument. You go through the school traffic, you're stopped. It wasn't the developer puts in the infrastructure, they widen the roads when they tell them to widen them, they put up the signs when they tell them to put up the road signs. I make improvements, but if the county's not gonna widen the road or take tax dollars and put them to that, that's, you know. But now we're talking about the simple fact of, I've got 5 kids and I don't own 100 acres. If one of these commissioners tell me they don't like me for what I do for a living, or they don't know what I'm gonna do with my property, I'm hit, and that's not fair to my kids. And that's just a simple truth of it. That's telling somebody what they can do with their land, that's not all right. Y'all wanna stop subdivisions, I'm okay with it. Slow and direct.
Somewhere, someplace, you've gotta have a screening process.
Correct, but not a dictation.
Yeah.
This kind of feels more like it punishes people who are already here and have land, rather than the people that you're trying to keep out, you know what I mean? It's dictating what we can do with the land that we've got already.
But, I understand what all of you are saying, but what's any different than what we're doing right now? All we're proposing is a new zoning It's nothing different than what we do right now. What this
So then why
gentleman's
change
saying,
it?
no, what this gentleman's saying is the same thing could happen to him with what we've got right now. Same thing. All we're doing, we're basically doing the same thing that we've got right now. We're just separating, yeah, we are. A1, A2, and
2.5
A3.
acres, sir.
I understand that.
I don't have 2.5 acres times 5 to give to my kids.
I understand that. All you would have to do is get it rezoned to
And what if
A3.
Mr. Van here says, hey, man, I
Well,
don't.
what's any different?
Well,
What,
hey,
wait a
he
minute,
said
now wait a
40,000
minute.
square feet per acre added that I can give that to my kids.
What's any different is what, if we don't do this, and Mr. Van says he don't like you, and he's not gonna do it, ain't no difference. Ain't no difference.
Well, that's called social.
That's why we have elections.
You all change it, not me.
That's why we have elections.
Leave it the way it is.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If we leave it the way it is, and he don't like you, you ain't gonna get it.
I give it to my kids.
Huh?
Acre versus 5.
No,
Yes,
no.
Hey, guys, hey, I've been probably in the middle of this about as long as anybody. I asked Jim the other day how long he's been here. To my knowledge, there has never been a residential request to rezone from any zone to another residential zone that's ever been denied. I don't know why anybody suddenly thinks that's gonna change.
The only problem I've got with all of this, with the A3, just like I told Ryan a minute ago, we've been down this road before, like in A1, and say I have 500 acres, John has 500 acres, you have 500 acres, and it's all A1. And somebody comes in and I'm just exampling now, somebody comes in and wants to change a lot to R1, an acre to R1. We start hollering spot zoning. We can't do spot zoning. That's the only problem I've got with the A3. If we've got A1s everywhere, and we say now it's not gonna be a problem with A3s, it's not gonna be spot zoning. Is that gonna change if everything around us is A1 and this gentleman wants to put 4 or 5 A3 1 acre lots there? We're gonna say we can't do that because that's spot zoning. That's my problem.
Residential changes within themselves are not spot zoning. Commercial into
I
residential,
know we say
industrial
that, but
would be-
we've always hollered spot zoning.
I would think anything A to A is not a big jump, and we already require rezoning from A to Rs already, which would have been your bigger jump. A zones to R zones is already that bigger jump, to where you had those half acre.
But you
lots.
see what I'm saying about spot
Yes, sir.
zoning?
I do.
That's
We're gonna
my,
have some
that's my
similar
only
to
problem with it.
what some might consider spot zoning, because it is a new zoning district. But I would think anything A1, A2 to A3 are interchangeable, they could all be, I would think, throughout those zones in a mix.
So are you saying, I'm kind of listening to what you're saying up there, so if we have a farm and it's A1, and we wanted to give our daughter 1 acre, so then that acre would need to be
A3.
A3, but the rest of the farm
But
would
you
still
gotta come
be,
to them to get.
right, you gotta come to you all to get the
But
zone.
you have to do, I mean,
But what I'm
I
asking
understand
you,
what you're saying.
what I'm asking you, is the rest of the farm gonna continue to be A1 and
Yes.
those?
Well, I
yes.
understand that it will be.
Okay.
Yes.
That 1 acre lot will be A3.
If it's not spot zoning, if you go from A to A instead of coming to planning commission, why can't it be done in-house? And let in-house do it and not be coming for county commission or for the planning commission? If
Well,
it's A to A,
anytime you
it's
change
one
zoning,
lot.
you have to come before us, and then it has to go to the planning commission.
If it's one lot, if it's one, if it's only taking one acre lot out of A1 to make it A3, if it's only one lot, why can't it be done in-house?
That's changing
You're
the
not
zoning.
you're not spot zoning.
You're not spot zoning. That was my only concern. That wouldn't be spot zoning, and that's what I'm saying. But it still has to come before the planning commission to change the zoning, and then it has to go to the county commission.
I had that same question as we're looking through this and working on it, because I'm thinking, if you got these, and we're so tied in, this is one little example, but if you got this, I wanna give my grandkid an acre, could that be handled administratively? We looked at it, we studied it, state of Tennessee law says any zone changes have to go through the process. Because that would have been simpler for this body, for county commission, and for the citizen. Kinda like a plat, if you came down right now and you subdivided
3 lots off of your property, you gotta come through planning. You gotta come to this body right here and get approval of your plat. Am I saying that right?
So why would we change it now? If you already do it, why are we changing?
We're not.
You just told me that if we're, so here's my whole question. You got 100 acres, and I want to break 100 lots off of 100 acres. Do I have to come before you?
Yes.
So why we gotta change anything? You have to already see it anyway.
Still got to approve.
You still gotta prove it. This is my whole argument. Why are we changing?
Plats and zoning are 2 different things. Plat approval,
Lot
zoning
sizes
approval.
before you getting into it.
That's exactly what I'm asking. It's gotta come before you anyway. Why do we need to change it? You have to approve, if I wanna take an acre, 2 half-acre lots or something, I gotta come before you anyway.
For a plat.
So you can turn me down.
For a plat, not zoning.
If you meet the requirements, they can't turn you down.
So
That's
any-
what Jim
any
spent
plat-
a long
any-
time talking
any-
about.
yeah.
So if I had 100 acres and I said, I'm gonna put, and again, that you can't do this, but, hey, I want 100 lots off that 100 acres. Do I have to bring it before you? Cause that's 1 acre.
What's it zoned at? What's 100 acres zoned at?
So, but now you gotta bring in a road. And you know you can't reach 100 acres without a road, so that now turns into a subdivision.
Well, it's a subdivision period when you subdivide the lot, and yes, sir, it comes through planning commission. Planning commission,
There's my fault.
only, planning commission can only turn down a plat that is not compliant with the regulation. So you can take care of it from through application. People want to create a subdivision, and as long as they can comply with the regulations.
That's why we need more regulations in the A3. There's not enough criteria.
Then why don't you guys just update it with restrictions and rezoning? Without making the A1s and the A2s adjusting the lot size.
I may not understand.
Okay, so right now a subdivision, if it's R1, right? You already have to go through all those for subdivisions, right?
Well, subdivisions are placed in on a property that already has zoning.
Right, but if you have A1, as it is right now, 2.5 acres, I can bust off an acre and give it to my daughter, right? Just have to deal with you through planning, right? So I'm probably out, minus the survey, I'm only out a couple $100 and the process takes me a couple months and that's it. But if you change it and first of all, I can't even subdivide now the 2.5 acres into 2, right?
Okay.
Unless I rezone into this new A3.
Yes, ma'am.
So then I do that whole process and then I have to go through, to rezone it and go through all that. And the
Yes,
notices in the paper and then that gets stretched out more months and more months and more months, correct? With the new way you guys wanna do it.
It does stretch it out. I won't say months. It's not quite that lengthy a process.
So
But yes, ma'am.
if you're worried about subdevelopments, couldn't you change the restrictions updated, because you say it hasn't been changed since the 70s, right? Not adjust the lot size for the A1 and the A2, because those are gonna be the smaller lots anyways. And the big acreage farms where you're saying are 30, 50, 100 acres that could be sold to a developer, you just rezone and update the zoning map. So then you're not affecting anyone that has, let's say, 2 acres, 5 acres, 7 acres, 14, 12, but you're affecting the big acreage that could be possibly sold to a sub-developer by just rezoning it, and then.
So that is a totally different process, and the way you would have to go about that, you would have to first of all, establish lot sizes that you're going to go in and tell all these people that you're rezoning. Then you have to send out public notice or file those property owners don't have to go through all the process and go through the process.
Right.
It's not a real,
So is there an issue with making that a public notice, like what she's saying?
well,
If you're saying that's a different process because you have to go through.
it would be a pretty insurmountable way to go about doing this.
Be
In
30,000
discussion with even ETAG and the process that was being looked at in doing, this was the process of recommendation of how the proper way to go about looking at doing this. This is what their recommendation was.
That the city will annex that. Instead of
It's
saying,
East Tennessee,
we
yeah.
only have 300 homes in there. That's what
Look at me like we'd be for it, it's not them bad.
must have, like he said, here they said.
Jim, could you, I think the public has been, one of the complaints is things taking longer, but in the last 2 years, the planning commission and county commission has made we've made lots of changes to, speed things up for the public. And, we've done stuff with letting people, a lot of issues have come up that can be dealt straight with the office as opposed to coming to us. And there's several of those more changes in this that should be beneficial to the public as well that we're not talking about.
I'll give you the numbers, because I want y'all to be notified and everybody to be notified what this looks like. But right now for rezoning, you need to have a rezoning application in our office about 11 business days prior to our planning meetings, okay? Because we have to make notice, we put the signs out, the public notices go out. It goes to that meeting on the first, second Tuesday of the month. It goes to county commission on the following Monday of that same month, and it goes to county commission's voting meeting the first Monday of the following month. So, it's fair to say it could be about 4 weeks from application to final vote. That will probably be, it's that 3 to 4 week time frame is how long it takes that action. It is a different step. It is an additional step. Not sure how else though you look at the growth going on and you're trying to protect some rural areas and you're in the comments of even when we get subdivision plats, we get several people out to object that. But unfortunately, the one thing is, there's nothing to object if it complies. There is no objection. There is no standing for those people either. In this process, even though it is going to be a hassle somewhat for people, it does give them more standing on what's going around. But, y'all have any more thoughts, comments in regards to this? Anything you'd like to see change different? If y'all are done, that's all I've got. I'll be happy to answer any questions that anybody has. I'm more than happy to.
Just, I'll walk off.